It's time to go beyond happy and to live joyfully. This is Lessons in Joyful Living with Kimberly Rinaldi, the founder and owner of the Lessons in Joyful Living radio network. Having created a highly successful coaching practice, Kimberly now teaches lessons in joyful living. She believes in empowering others and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers. What used to take weeks, months, or even years, she can now show you within a matter of hours with her programs. Kimberly can help you achieve your highest potential and move towards your soul purpose. And she provides you with tools that you can carry with you for a lifetime. This is Lessons in Joyful Living on the Lessons in Joyful Living radio network. And now, our founder and your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome. And today is Thursday, September 11th, 2014. And it is, it's a tough day. It frankly is a very tough day when you consider where we were 13 years ago. And I want to talk about that for a few moments. It's a gorgeous morning, but I woke up, I have to say I woke up in a bit of a funk. Just at an unconscious level, woke up just kind of feeling a little blue. On September 11th, 2001, we had one of the greatest tragedies that our country has ever experienced happen. And I have to tell you, it was a tough week for me. The Friday before, we had received word from my husband's family that his father was receiving last rites, and we were driving up to get to the hospital before that happened. And on that drive, I took a phone call from my father, who told me, because I was coming out to go to the doctors with him the following week, that he had been off his chemo meds for a year, but had decided that he wanted to live. And this I'm actually literally taking this phone call as we're driving up for last rites for Rick's dad. And I remember just getting so angry with my dad and saying, that may be an option you've taken off the table, and I really don't have time to talk about it, and told him what we were doing. And I said, I have to work on not being angry with this and, and let go of the fear, and I will call you as soon as I get an opportunity. And then the following week, September 11th happened. So it really, that whole week just stands out in my world as being very, very challenging and very painful. And it was a tough circumstance. As a medium, as a psychic and a medium, I know we have a bigger purpose in our soul. And I checked in that afternoon, and I have to tell you, there weren't a lot of souls who were hanging around who sort of, got caught by surprise and were stuck. I didn't find any, actually. I believe in soul agreements, and I believe that was their soul agreement to be in those places at those times doing those things. But it still doesn't change just how upsetting it was to me from a humanitarian perspective. I remember my father called me that morning, and he said, "You need to turn on the television. I can't even tell you what's going on." I was getting ready for work, and it was between the first and the second plane hitting the towers. And then we got news of the second plane hitting the towers, and while I was watching television with the phone up to my ear, and I remember going upstairs, and Rick was in the bathroom taking a shower, and I knocked, and I went in, and I said, "You need to get out of the shower. You need to see this." There were no words, is the only thing I can say. Interestingly enough, it is the week before, well, it's a few days, because my birthday's in 5 days. It's a few days before my birthday. And I usually take this week off, and I've taken it off for years, and we go and do things. And we were going to go have breakfast at Knott's Berry Farm that morning and go spend the day at Knott's. And then the next day we were at Disneyland, and then the following day I was at the Pomona Fair. And I have to tell you, we got put on high alert, so a lot of things didn't happen that day. They kind of got postponed. But it was interesting to see how our communities, how our people pulled together. And you would go places, and just strangers were literally embracing each other because of, and I'm tearing up and I'm choking up because of how it impacted us. what I want to bring to point today is it doesn't take tragedy to reach out. It doesn't have to take tragedy to connect. It doesn't have to take tragedy for us to pull each other a little closer. And on that note, I'm going to step off of that for a moment because it is still very raw. And if you get an opportunity today, say a prayer for the survivors. Say a prayer for the people whose lives this impacted. Say a prayer in remembrance for those we lost. But take a moment and reach out as well. And just connect with somebody a little bit closer, a little bit more relevant today. And I want to bring to the show, and I'm probably going to be very, very tender emotionally today. I want to welcome back to the show somebody who I absolutely adore and who shares a lot of the same experiences that I do and the same vision and voice. And she's been a guest before, and she's a strong advocate for self-reliance. And Candace Conradi founded Women with a Voice in 2010, and she's got an active blog and Facebook community. And out of her passion, she helps women realize their full potential. She's also a prolific author, and we featured some of her book information on our show before, and I love having her on. So I want to welcome back to the show, Candace. Good morning, dear.
Good morning, Kimberly. I'm so honored to be here on this particular day, especially. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Did you wake up just knowing in your heart what today was?
I did. It's very close to me because my son was working in New York. He was walking to his work and saw the first plane go into the tower. And I woke up. My alarm woke me up to the news, the breaking news. So I was out of bed and very tuned in and had a really hard time reaching Dave on and off all day to make sure he was safe. It was pretty scary.
Yeah. It you know, we're 13 years out, and I don't know that you ever heal from something that touches consciousness that deeply. Yes, we move beyond, but again, 13 years out, I still tear up. I don't mourn the loss of those people. They again, my soul agreement understanding is they were where they were supposed to be for that moment. But just to watch how it impacted our nation, our world, it was just such a painful place to be.
Well, I think there were a couple of things that happened for us as Americans living in the United States. We've never been touched on our soil, so other than Pearl Harbor, but that was still not mainland, the mainland of the U.S. I think the other piece to this that I think that if we give ourselves permission to be a little more objective in it, there are a lot of people in the world that wake up with this experience every day.
Yeah.
And we feel so sheltered here. I certainly felt naive and sheltered until that happened. But the news doesn't allow us that naivete anymore. And there's a lot of people in the world living under this on a daily basis.
Right.
So certainly not in the more developed countries, but in the other countries they do, and even parts of where we live, there are areas of cities that are certainly not safe. So I think the whole message, my whole theme around this is really to start being the change we want to see in the world, and the more we're able to be kind and reach out, as you said in your opening, to someone, not wait for a disaster. It heals people, it heals hearts, it heals souls. Being compassionate and understanding, having some grace for our humanity, because we're so imperfect as people. We're afraid. There's a lot of we all have that fear of being accepted and loved and understood. And when we're not, it lends toward extremism, and we put the whole world at risk when we're not tolerant. So
And I talk about it all the time, and it is somewhat human nature, our flawed nature, the humanness, not the divine nature,
Right.
to go into those us versus them boxes. And us are always better than them, whoever us are, whoever them are. That is where we go with that humanness. When we start to understand that us is inclusive of every conscious living organism, and that's, down to mindless, what we call soulless amoeba, but it is a consciousness, and it is a living organism. When we start looking at that us versus them, there really is no them. It's all us. It is all connection. And I think that's what touches me the most is we, and again, I'm getting choked up on this, we were so connected because of tragedy, yet that connection exists regardless.
Mm-hmm. Well, my son living in New York, he said the transformation in the city was remarkable because people who had traveled to New York in the past, a lot of jokes about New Yorkers being tough and it being scary. Everybody, to the last person, was giving a hand up to everybody else. There was so much pain in the city, and there was so much vulnerability that it was a completely different experience. And the vulnerability is such a big piece, to our compassion, because when we allow ourselves that vulnerability, we actually get to embrace everybody else.
Exactly. We are going into our first break. When we come back, we're speaking with Candace Conradi, and she's here to share with us her wisdom and her perspective. And she's an amazing soul, an amazing human being, and truly somebody that I call a colleague and a friend. And I appreciate her joining us on today, which is a very tender day for me. So join us back in just a few moments. We're going to be speaking about change and self-reliance and nurturing by stepping out of your comfort zone, by being vulnerable, by allowing people in. It's a really powerful place to be. So join us back in just a few moments. If you haven't already joined me, go to KimberlyRinaldi.com, sign up for my VIP newsletter, find out where I am, what I'm doing, and join me there too. Come back in a moment.
Having overcome tremendous obstacles herself, she believes happiness is overrated. She calls upon you to live joyfully. This is Lessons in Joyful Living, and Kimberly will be right back after these on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Martha Sanchez, the host of the Mommy to Mogul radio show, empowering women to build a successful business, invites you to join her on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At the ripe age of 5, she was already interpreting information in documents and instructions on forms for her immigrant parents. Now, through her experience and those of her guests, she provides you with valuable steps to empower you to reach financial independence. Martha A. Sanchez is a registered nurse with a Bachelor in Nursing and Master's of Business Administration. She's a business coach, speaker, author, and CEO of Moss International, LLC. Her diverse work experience brings you expertise in areas essential to customer service, social media, and budgeting. The Mommy to Mogul radio show furthers her personal mission of empowering women to help them build successful businesses so they can reach financial independence. Join Martha Sanchez, the host of the Mommy to Mogul radio show, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Do you want to get a contact high? Tune in for fun, inspiration, and motivation every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Learn how to maximize your mojo and just say no to the status quo. Get inspired and motivated by a fun-loving coach who knows what it's like to get through this thing called life. With your High on Life coach, Audra Irwin, each Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time and 12 noon Eastern.
Welcome back to Lessons in Joyful Living, teaching you how to truly stand in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, and know that it's calling for each and every one of us. This is what drives Kimberly to live what she teaches and to share her success and passion for helping others to help themselves. So let's get back to the show. This is Lessons in Joyful Living on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. And now, here again is our founder and your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome back. And this morning we're speaking with Candace Conradi, and we started the show by giving a moment and really understanding the connection that came from tragedy from September 11th, 2001 for our nation and how it impacted the world and how it impacted some of us directly. What I want people to understand is, we in the Rinaldi household, we actually we lit candles. We come from a Catholic background. We lit candles, and we kept candles burning for almost 5 years in our home in memory and honor, as a remembrance. And when you experience something that brings you together, whether it's tragedy or terror, as Candace experienced it, your call isn't just to hold that space, but to find the space just beyond it. And whatever that space is for you, whether it's peace, whether it's joy, whether it's power, we're here to experience the human tragedy, but we're also here to move into that space just beyond it. And I don't call it getting over it. I call it really, truly moving into that next space. Candace, for you, and I'm not going to say that the terror ended when you got a hold of your son, but you were able to breathe, right?
Oh, of course, because when it's personal, it hits us differently than when subjective, right?
Right.
So once I got to talk to him a few times that day. His wife was traveling, wasn't in New York, so I was their only connection. I have conference on my phone, and I would call them both, and then I would just set the phone down and let them talk, and be connected to each other, because Monica was very, worried about Dave. So it was quite, and then I just wanted to go to New York and pack him up and bring him back to California, of course.
Immediately, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that protective, motherly, and I knew, we all have to be where we have to be, and I knew that was where he needed to be for his career, and it's surrendering, I think the gateway to that next place is when you learn to accept it, and you don't resist what's happened, because there's nothing you can do about what has happened. That moment is over.
Right.
It's done. It's done. Yeah. And all we can do is really rest and just know that it happened, come to terms with it in the best way that we can. But through acceptance, we really can step into the next place where you can make a clear decision. Can I do something about it? Is it just time to let it go and accept it and know that I'm really powerless in this? And certainly I was totally powerless, and I knew that at the time.
Yeah.
And acceptance is a big thing. I think it's a key to our peace of mind, actually.
And that whether it's a tragedy that's immediate, or it's a hurt from the past, or even from just a moment ago, when you're spending your life turned around, backwards facing and wishing things had been different, you're neglecting your current moment, and you're neglecting your potential future moments. And that's the important thing to remember. Accept what is. Deal with it in whatever way you need to, whether it's getting help, whether it's, finding a resource within yourself, and then start building that foundation to move forward. That's the power. That's the peace. That's the moving into that next space. And again, I don't like to use the term getting over it in certain things, and this is obviously one of them that I would never say, get over it, but move into that next space. Find the power that you need to do so. How did you, you couldn't go pack him up and bring him home. How did you How did you handle that?
I cried a lot.
Yeah.
And I was very afraid, and I was constantly on the TV. And then I realized that they were replaying it so much, it was just reactivating my fear, so I quit watching television. And I think that's one of the ways for us to step into acceptance and get past the trauma of something. You can replay it and replay it and replay it, and you just embed it deeper and deeper.
You anchor it. Absolutely.
You anchor it. Yeah, so I finally just quit watching the television, and that actually unconsciously became a tool for my life. I realized that when I kept investing in things that had happened, thinking about them, revisiting them, whether mentally or, online or whatever it is, whatever we turn our attention to is really what's going to ignite the feelings inside of us. And I'm a really big advocate of feeding your mind well. We eat a lot of junk food in our country, but we also put a lot of junk into our minds. And
absolutely.
all of a sudden, we get mentally hooked, and we get mentally distracted, and we get mentally dissuaded away from our own personal direction. And our mind is meant to give us information and data, but it's not meant to figure out everything. It isn't the answer.
Yeah, and you know what? That is such a human perspective. I want to understand. I want to know. I'm not going to be good until I get the data and can, do a comparative analysis, and that doesn't change the outcome. Choice changes the outcome. And, like you, 3 days in, my husband disconnected I think we had cable at the time. He disconnected the cable knowing that I fully well wouldn't figure out how to put it back together. I went to turn the TV on. I called him all, hey, we don't have television. He said, no, we have videos and DVDs, and you're not watching TV anymore. And he was right. He said, you're slipping into a really, really dark place.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to take in as much information as possible to make some sort of sense of it. And there's never going to be a way to make any sense of it.
It's hard to understand when people do take an action that hurts humanity, and whether it's a child or a woman or a man or
a community. We want to make sense of it, and there isn't always that option, frankly. And ruminating over it over and over and over again isn't going to help. And again, choice changes things. And I wasn't given a choice. He disconnected the cable, and he said, go read something, and when I get home, we'll watch a movie. And he was really selective in letting what came into my experience. And the funny thing is, I grew up, we would watch the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock news. We read the Herald Examiner and the LA Times. So I grew up a news junkie. And, probably 3 or 4 years prior to this event, I had really weaned myself off the news because I knew it wasn't feeding my spirit. Yet, with this tragedy, I just went back to that place where I had to have all the information, or so I thought.
Well, I think we somehow feel safe if we think we know. And who was it I was talking to recently? We were having a conversation about ignorance being bliss. I think it was to someone who was getting ready to deliver their second child.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
The first time you have a baby, you're like, I can do this. Second time you have a baby, you're going, oh man, maybe we should.
I'm not looking forward to that. Yeah. Yeah, people worry about the head. It's the shoulders. Yeah.
And I'm not saying it isn't good to be informed. A very funny story. Years ago when I was a single mother, I just refused to watch TV. I didn't read newspapers. And my mother called me. I'll date myself here because I was living alone with my son, and I didn't want the bad. And so anyway, my mom calls me at work, and she says, I just called to let you know we were okay. And I said, why? What's wrong? And she goes, honey, Mount St. Helens erupted. I went, like 3 days ago. And I went, I'm so embarrassed. Are you okay? You know? So,
yeah,
there is joy in ignorance being bliss, but I do like to be somewhat informed. Really.
Yeah, and I, with the internet, I'll kind of peruse a couple of things, headline, decide whether it's getting into my consciousness or it's just I need to be aware of it, because frankly, tragedy will track you down. It knows where you live, and if it's big enough, somebody's going to call, somebody's going to tell you, even if it is your mom 3 days later.
I know.
That is kind of funny.
It was funny. We laughed about that a lot. So,
yeah.
You know what? It's important. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's important to be cognizant, conscious, and aware of what you're letting into your life. That's the bottom line on this one, and that's the important thing I think to remember. We're going into our next break. When we come back, we're speaking with Candace Conradi, and we're talking about how you focus and where your focus goes and what you get from it. Now, Candace, again, is an advocate for self-reliance, and she is the author of The Gentle Pine's Purpose, an inspiring children's book and adult fable about life, which I was so taken with when I read. Soul Sitters, What to Do When Your Loved One is Dying, co-authored with Stacey Canfield, and Sweet Tweets, 140 Characters of Wisdom. So join us back in just a few moments. We're speaking with Candace, best-selling author and influential for her provocatively insightful prose about life. She's joining me today on the anniversary of September 11th and sharing her insights and her own personal experiences. So join us back in just a few moments. If you haven't already joined me, go to KimberlyRinaldi.com, sign up for that VIP newsletter, and you're going to get a copy of my Deeper Meditation MP3 as well as some other great bonuses to help you move forward in your life. And if you're in the U.S. or Canada, you can also text LIJL to 22828. You're going to get that bonus set up as well. And I joke about not remembering what I've added to my bonuses. I really don't remember because we made the changes. And in my mind, I thought I'd remember, but I didn't write them down. So go find out what they are. They're really pretty cool. I remember that much. So I'm turning 48 next week. It's not my fault. Join us back in just a few moments.
Having overcome tremendous obstacles herself, she believes happiness is overrated. She calls upon you to live joyfully. This is Lessons in Joyful Living, and Kimberly will be right back after these on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Do you want to get a contact high? Tune in for fun, inspiration, and motivation every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Learn how to maximize your mojo and just say no to the status quo. Get inspired and motivated by a fun-loving coach who knows what it's like to get through this thing called life. With your High on Life coach, Audra Irwin, each Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time and 12 noon Eastern.
Goals, objectives, business and action plans. How important are they for me to manage? Whether you're an executive, entrepreneur, or maybe you're just someone looking to advance your career and want to be confidently prepared for your future, business and life coach Carmen Carosa can help you remove obstacles and move forward in the right direction. Carmen is known as the real-world coach for a reason. His no-nonsense style, along with an innate ability to form connections with people, gives you a unique opportunity to see higher and further than ever before. We live and work in an ever-changing, complicated world that can leave us with questions about every decision we make. Join host Carmen Carosa, business and life coach, on Forward Motion every Monday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. You will realize dreams and aspirations you thought we're out of reach.
Welcome back to Lessons in Joyful Living, teaching you how to truly stand in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, and know that it's calling for each and every one of us. This is what drives Kimberly to live what she teaches and to share her success and passion for helping others to help themselves. So let's get back to the show. This is Lessons in Joyful Living on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. And now, here again is our founder and your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
Good morning, and welcome back, and thank you for joining us this morning. Today we're joined by Candace Conradi, and we're talking about focus and direction and vision and power. And Candace, did you, I know the answer to this, but did you set out to be a thought leader in your world?
Oh, Lord, no. I love philosophy. I've always loved it. I really enjoy it. It's just something that, lights me up, like cooking lights up somebody else. So I've always been drawn into that world. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to write. That was really my whole focus was I just wanted to sit down and write. That was it. And what I found that what I was writing about was really about life, and that's how it kind of happened. I really believe as an author, the story will tell itself. And that's kind of what's happened with me. The story's just telling itself through me, and I'm just willing to follow it.
Yeah, you're the one who gives it voice. We were talking Tuesday. We had another author on, and she was saying that her publisher, she has conversations with Edgar Allan Poe. I love this. She's releasing a book on the 165th anniversary of his passing next month, and basically that sort of outlines her place and how she came to this, and some of the conversations and what it's done in her life. And her publisher, who is well known for doing sort of the metaphysical stuff, didn't want, quote, a channeled book, and initially kind of poo-pooed the idea. And she explained, this isn't channeling, these are conversations. This isn't, automatic writing or anything. And I laughed. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to call bullshit on that, because every creative endeavor is channeled. Mm-hmm. Every book. You talk to any author, and like you said, the book is there. The information is there. We just become the conduit for it, if you will. Yeah,
you just accept the job. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's so funny because my favorite story is about Mozart. When he was asked, how do you write the music? He said, I hear it, and he just put it on paper. Yeah. We all have a purpose, which is what Gentle Pine's purpose is about. It's really, but it starts with really being comfortable in your own skin, owning who you are as a person. And most of us have a really, really hard time with that. We, especially when, we were talking about 9/11 today, especially when you're trying to come to terms with tragedy, survivor's guilt and who I should be and who I want to be and who I think I am and who I really am. And it's really learning to be just accept and be okay and just start right there in your own skin.
Yeah, and that's, it's not everyone is called to have a radio show or write a book or, stand in front of 250, 500, 1,000 people and have a conversation, but we're all called for a greater purpose. That's the thing. And, it is imperative that we step into it, that we own it. And our greater purpose may impact an entire world. It may impact a generation. It may impact a community, or it may simply impact the people in your immediate family. Whatever that greater purpose is, there are people waiting for you to show up with your purpose to launch their purpose. It's a flippin' domino effect.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
That's the part when we're living small, when we're in that space that I'm going to hide my light under a little bushel basket. I don't want to step into it. It's too big. It's too scary. It's too frightening. We are robbing other people, number one, of what our purpose is that includes them, but of the ability, because we may have a puzzle piece that is required for them to step into their peace.
I just had this conversation with somebody not too long ago about if you think of life, the evolution of life, and I'm thinking, think in the terms of 100 years. There's this beautiful puzzle, and your piece is really, really important to complete the puzzle.
Yeah.
It is, but we minimize it. You can't be grandiose about it, or maybe you can. Maybe that's part of your soul purpose, and maybe that's part of your learning. But I still think that we have to show up who we are, and express it in this really authentic way. I was introduced last year to a science called human design, and it's a wonderful, people can go on and Google it. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource to really learning about who you are, So there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of methods. You can use tapping, you can use inspiration, you can listen to your show. There's so many ways to start accepting who we are as a person and really believing that joy is a possibility in our life and that it's a choice we make, even in the midst of tragedy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I look back, and while I got choked up today, what I try to convey is I'm not choked up over the tragedy. I'm choked up over the tragedy of us not having that connection without feeling there needs to be a reason, which was the tragedy that pulled us all together. Mm-hmm. Frankly, the connection is there. The connection is there. I get choked up over it's you can close your eyes, you can lock yourself in a darkened room. The light still exists.
Right.
And you can't deny the light. It's still there, And we're very much like that 2-year-old playing hide and seek, where we cover our eyes and we can't see you, so we don't exist anymore. It's important to remember that connection is always there, and that's where I really get choked up in this. The joy that I find from that experience. We were, I was telling you some of the things that we had planned. We were a couple days later at Knott's Berry Farm at Mrs. Knott's having breakfast, and we pulled our table up with a family and we pulled tables together, a family who was out here from the East Coast on vacation when it happened. And, we sat and we talked and we had a long conversation about it. And when we left the table, we embraced total strangers, and hugged them and wished them well. And, we were grateful to hear while we were having breakfast, a call came through that another family member had finally been able to get through to them that they were okay. A couple days later at the fair, they took a moment of silence and, played the Star-Spangled Banner. And I stood there and held hands with a stranger. And again, we do not need tragedy to pull us together. We do not need it. It's what does at times, but reach out, find that connection today, and then find it again tomorrow and the next day. And imagine what a change we'll make in the world.
It would change everything.
Yeah. Just by making one connection at a time, daily. That little bit of kindness might be the only thing that person at the grocery store experiences that day.
Oh, we're so in tune, because I was just going to say, you don't know what that person is when they're at the grocery store.
Of course we are. I have cards. They say psychic on them. Yeah.
So funny.
No, and that's why I love talking to you. It's it is so important. I had a between life experience with my first past life regression, and it was spontaneous, and I share this in some of my programs. In that space between lives, I met God. Put your tinfoil hat on or not, I don't care. I met God. I met that energy that we call creation. And for that moment, I had a brief inkling of what our true connection was. And it was so beautifully overwhelming because we can't even imagine it. I tell people it's like holding a grain of sand in a beach that is the size of our universe. Our understanding on this side of what connection is holding that tiny little grain of sand for what it truly is. And it was such a beautiful space. And I knew when I came back, if we just, each of us held that grain of sand, we could embrace the wholeness of it.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot. If you think about, this is a less positive spin on it, but if you think about a cold, for instance, it starts with a little tiny infinitesimal,
right?
Virus. Invisible cell, virus. If we can just become infected with divinity.
Yeah.
Just
with
let
divinity,
us be infected with divinity. Yeah.
Yeah, we so willingly infect ourselves with other things.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about, consciousness breeds change. Consciousness breeds choice. So start making a choice. Move it in another direction. I love this conversation today, Candace. And this was
too.
So not planned or scripted or what. It wasn't even what we were talking about.
I know. I trust that you and I will always go in the direction that we're supposed to go.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. When we come back, though, I do want to talk about what you're doing currently, because you've got some great work coming up, and you're out there again, impacting, influencing, and helping other people bring their voice and vision to the world, and that's a powerful, powerful place to be. And I love that about you, is that you own that power. And we'll talk about that. We'll share that when you come back. When we're back from the break, we're going to be speaking more with Candace. We're going to find out what's going on in her world today, and what's going on in her world in the coming days. So join us back in just a few moments. If you haven't joined me, sign up for that VIP newsletter. We've got some really great things going on. We, with Into the Light Paranormal, have been doing some great events, and we have some really cool ones planned. If you haven't had a chance, go to the Facebook page, Kimberly Rinaldi, and we've posted some data or evidence, I believe it's called, from our Star of India investigation. We got some great EVPs. We got some great experiences. So our Into the Light Paranormal company, we're out there doing paranormal investigations, and we're getting some great response. And Into the Light says what we're there for. We're there to help those who can't help themselves. I have my women's healing retreats coming up. I'm back to teaching and adding more classes and programs and loving it and just getting back into the mix of things. And as you know, we launched the radio network, and that's an exciting place to be. So if you're interested in doing radio, give us a call too. We want to talk about that. But join us back in just a few moments. We're speaking with Candace Conradi, and we're talking about how you can own your power and how she's helping others do it.
Having overcome tremendous obstacles herself, she believes happiness is overrated. She calls upon you to live joyfully. This is Lessons in Joyful Living, and Kimberly will be right back after these on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network.
Do you want to get a contact high? Tune in for fun, inspiration, and motivation every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Learn how to maximize your mojo and just say no to the status quo. Get inspired and motivated by a fun-loving coach who knows what it's like to get through this thing called life. With your High on Life coach, Audra Irwin, each Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time and 12 noon Eastern.
Goals, objectives, business and action plans. How important are they for me to manage? Whether you're an executive, entrepreneur, or maybe you're just someone looking to advance your career and want to be confidently prepared for your future, business and life coach Carmen Carosa can help you remove obstacles and move forward in the right direction. Carmen is known as the real-world coach for a reason. His no-nonsense style, along with an innate ability to form connections with people, gives you a unique opportunity to see higher and further than ever before. We live and work in an ever-changing, complicated world that can leave us with questions about every decision we make. Join host Carmen Carosa, business and life coach, on Forward Motion every Monday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. You will realize dreams and aspirations you thought were out of reach.
Welcome back to Lessons in Joyful Living, teaching you how to truly stand in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, and know that it's calling for each and every one of us. This is what drives Kimberly to live what she teaches and to share her success and passion for helping others to help themselves. So let's get back to the show. This is Lessons in Joyful Living on the Lessons in Joyful Living Radio Network. And now, here again is our founder and your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome back. And this morning we're speaking with Candace George Conradi, and her books speak to the heart of all people regardless of age, offering beautiful reminders of humankind's innate power and ability to live a life of value, purpose, and beauty according to each person's unique life design, because that's what she's doing. So welcome back, Candace. And you're doing something really cool when we're off the show today that is what part of your life design. What are you doing now helping others?
I actually fell into this. It was something that just happened, but I'm actually coaching authors as they write their books. And I have 9 authors that I work with. I love every single one of them, and they each have this amazing book that they're writing. It's very fun to watch them develop and
birth these creative babies, yeah.
Oh, yeah, give their story their voice, Yeah. And we meet and go over, and what's really beautiful about the groups is that they really give important insight to the content. There's non-disclaimer agreements people can't use, and they don't, because everybody's working on their own specific story,
Right.
I would love to do this on a virtual group like this on either Skype or Google Hangouts. Small groups, though, because you really need small groups for it to be effective.
Right.
But I'm also working on some of my own stuff, and I don't want to expand too quickly right now because I've got a lot of irons in the fire.
And that is, you know what? That is such a smart way to do it. You don't have to impact the world, but if you impact one person, the world is impacted.
Oh, it is a domino. It's a wave effect. Yeah. It's like throwing out a rock into the water and you watch it ripple.
Yeah. And it changes everything. And I use the term in all directions of time and space. A little woo-woo, but truly. When you make a change in this world, when you affect change, it does change things in all directions of time and space. It really does. And it's ever-shifting and ever-changing, and it's a beautiful, beautiful world we live in. Yes, we have tragedy. Yes, bad things happen, but 8 billion people on this planet, most of us are doing the right thing at the right time. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I think there is a lack of focus on the good things that are happening, and this goes back to what you feed your mind. You want to be informed when a volcano erupts, but you also need to be looking at one thing that the newscasts are doing that I love is that the very last story is always an upbeat kind of a story. They look for really positive things to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we need to do more of that. We need to look for the things. What I have started doing, started a gratitude journal, and in this journal, what I'm doing is writing what my husband did right today that made my life better.
Yeah.
What happened to me that lined up for me that made my life better. Writing is such a powerful tool to use for people. You don't realize how.
Well, and let me tell you from a learning perspective and an anchor changing perspective, and we anchor to everything, good, bad, or indifferent, whether we like it or not, consciously or otherwise. You are anchoring whatever you're writing. So think about this. And there are too many people out there journaling the crap in their lives, and I was going to use the hate word. You are not served by it, period. You are not served by it because you are anchoring it visually. You see the written word. Auditorily, you are speaking it in your mind, and kinesthetically, because your hand is moving, you are anchoring it in the strongest possible way. So think about what you're putting in writing. And I love that you're doing the gratitude journaling. It is required of my clients, not an option, required. And I don't want to hear that you're grateful for a house and a job and a roof over your head. Those are the big things. I tell them, go find stuff that you wouldn't otherwise normally be conscious of. When you really focus on those little things, the whole world changes. Yeah.
There is a wonderful resource called The Tapping Solution When You Are Stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We have embedded this in, and it's really about self-loving.
Nick Ortner?
And yes, I love his work.
Yeah.
And what I've found with it is when I'm stuck, and I use it when I'm writing, I use it when I'm upset, instead of allowing that to sit and simmer, I actually tap it out.
Yeah, and yeah, it's EFT is such a powerful tool, and Nick Ortner has put together some great direction on it. It's every time somebody puts a hand in it, it just gets bigger and better, and I love that about it. I'm going to brag a little bit. We just booked Nick Ortner for an interview in April. We booked him yesterday.
Oh my gosh!
You want to talk about synchronistic? Yeah.
So cool, and you should be bragging about that and telling the world about it, because he's
fab. I love him. Yeah.
Well, he's the man. He is a very good example of someone who followed what he knew he needed to do. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy. It was very challenging. He had financial issues. He had all kinds of the issues that we all face. Yeah. But when he stepped into what he knew and trusted the direction he was being led, and he walked through that door, his whole life changed.
Yeah, he actually asked that when we do the interview, he asked if we could put it off till April to time it with his next book release. So we actually just put the date on the calendar yesterday.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I am so stoked that you got him, because
me too.
I promote his work constantly. I use it with my authors when they're stuck. I use it every single day of my life, and it changed the landscape. It really helps me stay connected to that joy, and joy isn't about being happy all the time.
No,
we are
it
emotional
isn't.
beings. We can be sad. It's part of who we are.
Yeah.
But joy is about being okay with that.
That's it. And joy is the understanding that no matter what happens, you're okay, and nobody can take that from you. No one, nothing. You're ultimately okay. Your eternal spirit is okay. Hell, it's better than okay. And for those of you who don't know what EFT or tapping is, and I just want to do a quick, brief point on this, it's based on acupuncture meridians used over 6,000 years in Chinese medicine. For people who look at this and, it's woo-woo, there is no woo behind this. There is science, and the language is based in neurolinguistic programming, which is a lot of the behavioral work that I do. They've paired two really powerful tools to make and effect change in people's lives. So if you've written this off to being woo-woo or, too weird, go check it out. Try it. You really should. And as Candace was saying, she refers everyone that she knows to it. I do the same thing. It's powerful stuff. So you're doing that work with authors and stepping in and owning your power in that and helping others bring theirs to light. You have another book that you're getting ready to go into research on. When can we look forward to that being released?
Well, my goal is to have it finished by the end of December. And the first draft of it done. I don't see it out until probably next spring or summer. Okay. Writing a book is a process,
right?
And it's something that as an author you really learn how to be patient with the process.
Yeah. It's not like you can sit down and go, be creative today. Damn it! If you're not there, you're not there. Yeah.
Well, and it's even beyond that. It's you write it, and then you have to have it really proofed. You have to have other readers read it. you need to have editors come in and shape it for you. It's birthing. It's like an elephant birthing a baby elephant. It takes 22 months of gestation or whatever.
Yeah,
and
it's a
time.
big delivery. Yes,
and it is a big delivery. So, if new authors out there are thinking about writing, the advice I want to share with you is that it's not going to happen overnight. The whole world isn't going to read your material right away. You get time to learn how to have your writing exposed, which is one of the first things I do with my authors is they have to read it out loud so they're comfortable. And it's a process. It's a process, and it's a beautiful process.
I love it. I love it. We are to the end of the show again, and I want to thank you for joining me today, Candace. It is always a pleasure.
I love being on your show. I just love you. I feel like we're kin.
Yes, and I love you too. And thank you again for joining us. And we will always have you back. There's always so much more to talk about. Remind us where we can go to get your books and find you. And if we have authors out there who are interested in reaching out because they want to be mentored by you, how do they find you?
Okay, books are on Amazon.com. Just type in my author's name, Candace George Conradi, and they'll all pop up. If you're interested in being mentored, you can go to Writers Inner Circle. That's WRITERSINNERCIRCLE.com, and fill out a little questionnaire, and I'll get back to you.
Perfect. And I want to thank you all for joining us today on the Lessons in Joyful Living radio show on the Lessons in Joyful Living radio network. I am Kimberly Rinaldi, and I really think it's important that you put yourself in the center of your world. So go do good things for you today and reach out and connect and understand the connection is there. It's just sometimes your job to make it happen. And when you find your lesson in joyful living, whatever it is, remember that's only half of the path. The other half is to turn around and share it. As I said earlier in the show, there are people who are waiting for you to show up for them. Waiting. Their piece of the puzzle cannot be put into the puzzle until you have provided your piece. So if you're living small, if you're dimming your light for any reason, any purpose, knock that shit off. Get out there. Live a big life. Make it happen. Because, again, you don't have to impact the world with what you do. Just impacting one person will change the world. It'll impact the world in its own way. So make it happen. Join us tomorrow, live, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're here Monday through Friday. We are sharing lessons in joyful living with you on a daily basis because that's what brings me joy. That's what I'm here for. And if you know someone whose lesson needs to be shared or they need a show, give us a call at 888-916-4569. We'd love to talk. Look forward to seeing you here again tomorrow. Make it a good day. I'm going to go grab a coffee. Enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thank you for being a part of Lessons in Joyful Living with Kimberly Rinaldi on the Lessons in Joyful Living radio network. Each week, Kimberly will be sharing from her 20-plus years in corporate and business development, decades of combined experience, to help you go past happy and to get to joyful living, to truly stand in a place of peace, joy, and abundance.